welcome to BloombergQuint. We've got the numbers for GDP for the first quarter, April to June. The headline number, GDP at constant prices, contracted by 23.9%. This is the period when the nation was under lockdown. At current prices, GDP contracted by 22.6%, and GVA also contracted more or less in line with that. Joining us to read us through these data points that have come out is Dr. Pronab, former Chief Statistician of the country. Dr. Sen, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. So let me just first throw the floor to you and ask you what you make of the headline numbers. You had made your own estimations. Do you think the official numbers more or less reflect what you think was the extent of contraction?
Yes, I do actually. In fact, I had talked about around 25%. And given that I was going essentially on what little information we had, I think we are surprisingly close at 23.5%.
Dr. Sen, just on the technicalities, so the first estimate, typically would we say that in a current situation like this, it may underestimate the extent of contraction?
Yes, it may. Everything, because remember, the quarterly estimates are based essentially upon corporate data, and even among corporates, it's based on the listed corporates. So these are companies which are listed on the stock exchange, so they use SEBI data. So you're talking about the largest of the large. So these are not the smaller companies at all. So the first round of revisions will happen when the Ministry of Company Affairs data comes in, which covers all corporates. And what if, as we all suspect, that smaller companies have actually done worse than the larger companies, then we should expect one round of revision on that count alone. The second will be when the informal sector data comes in. But that's going to take a while to happen. But there, I suspect the revisions may in fact be larger.
So it would be fair to assume that even at a 24% real GDP contraction, we perhaps haven't captured the entire extent of damage that the economy has taken in this period.
This is correct, yes. But the problem is that we will not get hard data on the quarterlies. So what we will get is that the revisions which will come out subsequently will be essentially annual estimates, which would then get factored over the previous quarters, right? So there will be a certain amount of sort of allocational hand-waving that will be involved.
Dr. Sen, if one looks first at the sectoral numbers, is there anything surprising to you in that? I think predictably, construction has taken the steepest hit, 50% fall. Manufacturing is down badly. Trade, hotels, transport is down badly. What catches your eye in the sectoral breakups?
No, in fact, all of them pretty much sort of confirm what I had thought. There are a couple of surprises to me. One is I didn't expect public administration to go down this sharply. Now, this is not good news at all, because one would have expected that at a time when the only really active player was the government, one would have expected this to be a small positive, not a negative. This I find really bad news, because what it means is that the government itself has scaled back. And that is not good news for anybody. The second piece, which surprises me a little bit, is the figure that we are getting for mining and quarry. Because if my memory serves me right, mining was treated as a part of essential goods.
Yes.
So why mining is coming at a massive minus 23.3%, I don't understand.
Perhaps the labor shortages, Dr. Sen?
Perhaps the labor shortages kicked in there, but that's pretty unexpected. In fact, one could say that the construction at minus 50%, now that sounds large, but my understanding was that more or less all construction had stopped till the end of June, for nearly 3 months. So clearly what is happening in construction is that certain forms of construction, I would imagine this would be primarily rural construction, which continue to happen. But the rest seem to be pretty much on track with what the expectations were.
One question on the services side, sir. So, things like finance, for instance, or communications, these were services which were still, which were functioning during this period of time. But
No,
are they not?
no. On the financial, remember it clubs financial, real estate, and professional services.
Yeah.
Right? Real estate services collapsed.
Okay.
Totally collapsed. Okay. So finance kept going.
Yeah.
Professional services were impacted because professional services are derived services. These are services which are used by businesses. So if businesses are closed, then professional services will tend to go down.
Okay, understood. So agriculture, a small bright spot. I know we've been holding on to straws saying that agri will take us out of this. I mean, good news, I guess, but certainly nowhere.
But Ira, it's good news only to the extent that we are comparing it with everything else.
Yeah.
And everything else is large negatives, and you have this one positive sticking out. But if you look at it historically, 3.4% growth in agriculture is roughly normal. What we expect for agriculture is between 2.8 and 3.5, right? So this is not abnormal in any real sense. Just pretty much on track. If that 3.4% had been 7%, then I think we would have had cause to cheer.
Okay. Dr. Sen, just on the expenditure side numbers, just done a bit of quick math. So the private final consumption expenditure is down about 26 odd percent.
Yeah.
Gross fixed capital formation down 47%. Government final consumption expenditure 16%. What do you make of those data points?
Those are completely expected.
Okay.
Yeah, those are precisely what one would have expected. In fact, out here it's quite interesting that if you look at government final consumption expenditure, that's up.
Yeah.
It's up quite a lot.
Yeah.
Now, why that is up and yet your public administration, defense, and other services is negative, I find slightly puzzling, because the two are moving in not just opposite direction, but the size of the movements are fairly large.
Absolutely.
So I think that needs to be squared. Or what was the government up to?
Okay. The consumption numbers at about a quarter collapse is roughly what one would have anticipated.
Look, absolutely. Although, given the fact that most discretionary spend had been stopped for nearly a month and a half, for about 40 days, discretionary consumption was practically completely not happening because the retail side was not open. It could have been larger, but probably this data picks up some of the pent-up buying that happened post lifting of the lockdown.
Possibly. Dr. Sen, just two last questions because I know you have to go. One, in the GDP numbers, in any of the segments, would there be a material, apart from what you already explained, data collection issues, like, for instance, the divergence between public administration and government consumption that we're talking about? Would there be any other data collection issues that we need to keep in mind?
Yeah, if you look at both public administration on one side and the government final consumption expenditure on the other, the real action that took place was at the state government level and also at the municipal level. Now, these data points don't come in yet. Some of the states do produce quarterly numbers, but a lot of states don't. So this is probably extrapolation from what data the ministry has. So I would suspect that those would undergo changes as the full data set comes in.
All right. My last question to you then, Dr. Sen, is, this is data which comes with a lag. I know the first conversation you had with me when this crisis broke was saying that GDP data is not the most valuable data in a situation like this. But still, what would be the takeaways we should glean from this that policymakers should start to act upon?
Well, the takeaway is that if we are looking at a GDP fall of nearly 24% in the first quarter, so unless something really quite miraculous happens over the next 3 quarters, which I don't think anybody expects, think about what's going to be happening. Supposing we even flatline, right? We are not talking about a minus 5% growth. We are talking about a negative growth, which is significantly higher than that.
Double digits, minus 10. I know
Well, that depends on what happens in the second quarter.
All right.
Very
all right,
much what happens in the second quarter.
All right, Dr. Sen. I know you have to go, so very kind of you to take the time to speak to us. Appreciate it. Thanks.
It was a pleasure.